Introduction. The foundations of submission. This is where your training begins. This session forms the foundation of your journey into obedience, service, and surrender. Each one is designed to dismantle the old stories you've been taught about masculinity, control, and shame, and replace them with something truer, something stronger. In this first module, you will learn why subservience is self-care and how surrender restores your strength, how to stop the shame cycle and claim your desires without guilt, the role of discipline as devotion, turning obedience into daily structure, how to discover the pleasure of obedience and the satisfaction of serving well, and finally, how to integrate submission into your daily life, making it your truth, not just your fantasy. This is not entertainment. This is training. Take each session seriously. Reflect. Practice the exercises. Repeat them daily. Because this is where fantasy becomes reality. This is where you begin to live as you truly are. Obedient, devoted, submissive. Section 1. Subservience is self-care. Welcome. I want you to really take that in. You are welcome here because you've chosen to be here, and not every man could. Most men will never allow themselves to admit what they already know, that serving, surrendering, and being guided is what they crave. The world teaches men to perform one role, to lead, to push, to be in charge all the time. But you and I both know how heavy that role can be. The expectations, the pressure, the constant need to prove yourself. It's exhausting. It leaves no space for rest, no space to breathe, no space to be who you actually are. And that is why you are here, because you are ready to try something different, something more real, subservience. From the moment boys become men, society drills into them this narrow definition of strength. Strength means control. Strength means competing. Strength means pretending you never feel vulnerable. But tell me this, isn't there something stronger about the man who knows himself, who doesn't have to hide his desires, who doesn't perform for others but chooses for himself. When you choose subservience, you aren't giving up your strength. You are redefining it. You are saying, I don't need to live by someone else's script anymore. That act, that conscious choice to kneel, to obey, to serve, isn't weakness. It's freedom. And that freedom is powerful. Think about your daily life. At work, maybe you're expected to lead, to take charge, to always be on top of things. In your family, maybe you are the one people rely on. With friends, maybe you're the one that has to hold it together. With friends, maybe you are the one that has to hold it together. And maybe, sometimes, you even play that role in your relationship. The man who must decide, must control, must always know what comes next. But inside, there's a part of you that just wants to lay it all down, to stop carrying the weight, to stop pretending you have all the answers. And that part of you, the submissive part, isn't broken. It isn't wrong. It's trying to save you. It's the part that knows, I need a place where I don't have to be in charge. I need a place where I can simply follow. I need a place where my worth is in my obedience, not my performance. And when you finally allow yourself to honor that truth, you discover relief. This is what subservience gives you. Relief, rest, renewal. Let's talk about the psychology of it for a moment. Fantasy is not dangerous. Fantasy is healthy. Your mind uses fantasy to experiment, to express, to imagine possibilities that daily life never allows. And when you stop hiding from those fantasies, when you allow them to become practice, that's when transformation begins. The act of submission is deeply grounding for the mind. It lowers stress because you are not holding the burden of control anymore. It builds focus because your attention sharpens on one thing, serving well. It deepens connection because obedience requires trust. Even discipline becomes easier because by following someone else's rules, you train your mind to accept structure, and structure creates stability. So understand this clearly. Subservience is not an indulgence. It is not a flaw. It is a discipline, a practice, a form of self-care. There is a difference between dreaming and doing. Dreaming is private. You imagine kneeling. You imagine being told what to do. You imagine being guided. And that can be satisfying for a moment. But when you live it, when you take real steps to embody subservience in your daily life, something shifts. Maybe it's a ritual of service, doing something deliberately for someone else. Maybe it's obedience, practicing saying yes and following through. Maybe it's a mindset, pausing before you speak and asking yourself, how would a good submissive respond here? Every small act you take makes your fantasy real, and reality, practiced deliberately, reshapes who you are. So let this sink in. Every act of submission is a gift you give yourself. It nourishes you. It aligns you. It makes you more of who you truly are. Take a breath with me now. Inhale slowly. Hold it. And exhale. Notice how your body softens when you give it permission. Notice the tension you didn't even know you were carrying in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest. Notice how, just for a moment, you allowed yourself to let go. That is the feeling submission offers you, not only in fantasy, but in every part of your life where you allow it. You don't have to push anymore. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to carry everything anymore. You can surrender, and in surrender you can heal. Let me be clear. This coaching is not entertainment. It is not a quick distraction or a guilty pleasure. This is training. I will guide you through lessons, practices, and exercises that help you embody submission in meaningful ways. Some will challenge you, some will soothe you, but all of them will bring you deeper into alignment with who you really are. And I expect you to engage, to listen, to practice, to reflect, because transformation doesn't come from passively watching, it comes from action. You are not here to just fantasize. You are here to live your fantasy. You are here to become. So, this is your beginning. Understand that being here is already an act of courage. Most men will never admit what you've admitted. Most men will never step into that truth of their subservience. But you have. And from this point forward, you will learn that submission is not shameful. It is powerful. It is nourishing. And it is yours. I welcome you to this training. Breathe deeply Be present. Your work begins now. Part 2. Stopping the shame cycle. If you are here, it means you are ready to go deeper. Our first session was about understanding subservience as self-care. Today, we need to talk about something that gets in the way of that care. Shame. Men who long to be submissive are often tangled in shame. It begins early. You were told that strength means control. You were told that desire should always be dominant, assertive, masculine in a narrow sense. So when your body and mind pulled you in another direction, toward obedience, toward surrender, toward serving, you learned to hide it. You learned to cover your arousal with jokes. You learned to bury your fantasies. You learned to play a part. That hiding is shame, and shame thrives in silence. And the cycle of shame works like this. You feel desire, you want to submit, to serve, to obey. Then immediately the voice of judgment comes in. And this is wrong, this is weak, this is not what a man should do. And so you suppress it. But suppressed desire does not vanish. It only grows stronger until it bursts out again. In fantasy, in secrecy, in moments you didn't plan, and then you feel even more ashamed. Round and round, desire, shame, suppression, eruption, shame again. It is exhausting, and it is unnecessary. But how do you stop the shame cycle? The first step is to name what you feel without judgment. Desire is not wrong. Wanting to serve is not wrong. Craving surrender is not wrong. In fact, these desires are natural. They are a part of who you are, and the more you resist them, the more power you give to shame. So the practice is this. When the shame voice rises, you don't argue with it. You breathe and you say, "This is my desire. It is mine, and I choose not to be ashamed." Repeat that to yourself. It is mine, and I choose not to be ashamed. Psychologically, reframing is powerful. Every time you shift your inner dialogue away from judgment and towards ownership, you rewire the way your brain connects desire and shame. Instead of shame attaching itself to submission, self-acceptance attaches itself. Instead of guilt following fantasy, relief follows. instead of fear controlling you. Choice belongs to you. And over time, the cycle breaks. Not because desire goes away, but because shame loses its grip. I want to give you a practical exercise for this week. The next time you feel ashamed of a submissive thought or fantasy, pause. Don't push it down. Instead, write it down. Just 1 or 2 sentences describing the thought. Then, directly underneath, write this. This is my desire. It is mine, and I choose not to be ashamed. Notice how your body feels when you see those words on the page. Notice the shift. This is not about erasing desire. It is about claiming it. Another way to break shame is to replace it with action. When you feel guilt for wanting to serve, transform that energy into actually serving. Do something small, deliberate, and submissive. Clean a space with intention. Follow an instruction from me carefully. Take pride in how well you obey. This converts the cycle. Instead of shame feeding on desire, desire flows into action. And action feeds pride. That is how you recondition yourself. So understand this clearly. You are not wrong for what you want. You are not broken. And you do not need to live in a cycle of shame anymore. You can step out of it. You can own your submission, honor it, practice it, and in doing so, you begin to live freely. This is your next step in training. Stop the shame. Start the service. I expect you to practice this because you deserve more than silence and guilt. You deserve the clarity and strength that comes when you finally say, "It is mine, and I choose not to be ashamed." And that is your work now. Part 3. Discipline as devotion. You've begun to understand that subservience is self-care. You've begun to break the shame cycle. Now, we move to the next stage. Discipline. And I want you to hear this clearly. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is devotion. Most people think discipline means being scolded, restricted, or forced. But true discipline is about structure. When you submit, your discipline is not about punishment. It is about choosing to live in alignment with your devotion. Every act of discipline, every ritual, Every rule you follow, every limit you respect, is a declaration. I belong to something greater than my impulses, and that is powerful. Without discipline, desire is chaos. It comes and goes without direction. It leaves you restless, ashamed, unfulfilled. With discipline, desire becomes practice. Your mind learns to focus. Your body learns control. Your submission becomes consistent, reliable, meaningful. This is how you turn fantasy into reality, through discipline. Discipline is devotion when you practice it daily. Think of simple rituals. Kneeling before you begin your day. Writing down a reflection after each lesson. Following one instruction without question. These are not punishments. They are acts of service. They are reminders that your submission is not random, but chosen. Psychologically, discipline grounds you. It lowers anxiety by creating predictability. It builds self-trust because you keep your own commitments. And it strengthens devotion because every act of discipline is a silent message to yourself. I obey because I choose to. I obey because I serve. Do you feel how different that is from shame? This is not about failure. It is about fidelity. Here is your practice. This week, create one small ritual of discipline for yourself. It could be kneeling before bed. It could be writing "I serve" 10 times each morning. It could be setting a timer and practicing stillness for 3 minutes. Choose one and do it every day, not because you are forced, but because you are devoted. Part 3. Discipline as devotion. Welcome back. You've begun to understand that subservience is self-care. So remember this. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is devotion. It is how you honor your submission. It is how you bring order to desire. It is how you live in alignment with the truth of who you are. Your training deepens now. Do your ritual. Do it with intention. Do it with devotion. Part 4. The pleasure of obedience. You've learned that subservience is a form of care. You've learned to break the shame cycle. You've begun to practice discipline as devotion. Now it's time to talk about something deeper, the pleasure of obedience. Yes, obedience can be pleasure. Think about how exhausting it is to always be the one in charge, to always be responsible, to always make decisions. Obedience takes that weight off your shoulders. It creates simplicity. It gives you relief. But beyond relief, obedience gives you something sweeter. Satisfaction. That quiet, unmistakable sense of, I did well. I served well. I pleased. And that satisfaction is pleasure. It nourishes you. It fills you. It stays with you. Obedience rewards your brain. When you follow through on an instruction, your mind releases tension. It replaces doubt with certainty. It replaces chaos with order. Every time you obey, you are training your brain to associate submission with reward, and that is powerful conditioning. Soon, obedience doesn't just feel like a task, it feels like a need, and meeting that need feels pleasurable. There is also a truth you know in your body. Obedience can be arousing, not because it is erotic in the conventional sense, but because it taps into something primal. When you obey, you are aligning with your deepest desire. You are living the role your body and mind crave. And that alignment creates energy. It creates heat. It creates arousal. That is why so many submissives describe the act of obedience itself, even in small things, as intensely pleasurable. I want you to start noticing this. Obedience is not limited to grand gestures or fantasies. It can be present in small daily choices. When you kneel, when you write, when you follow a ritual, when you hear my words and act on them, that is obedience. And the more you notice the pleasure it gives you, the stronger the bond becomes between who you are and how you live. Here is your practice for this lesson. Each day this week, choose one deliberate act of obedience. It can be as simple as listening to this lesson again and writing down your reflection. It can be kneeling and breathing slowly for 3 minutes because I instructed you to. It can be following one ritual you've already created with care and precision. After each act, pause. Notice the feeling it gives you. Notice the pride and the satisfaction, the calm, maybe even the arousal. Write it down. Name it. Own it. The more you recognize the pleasure obedience gives you, the more powerful it becomes. So let me leave you with this. Obedience is not only about duty, it is not only about structure, it is about pleasure, and the pleasure of being aligned with your true role, and the pleasure of serving well, and the pleasure of letting go, receiving something in return, and receiving something in return: relief, pride, calm, arousal. That is the pleasure of obedience. That is what you are learning to live. Take this seriously. Practice daily, because the more you obey, the more you will discover just how much pleasure is waiting for you. Part 5. Integration. Living submission daily. You've made it to the 4th lesson, and that means you've already begun the work. You've learned that subservience is self-care. You've started breaking the shame cycle. You've discovered discipline is devotion, and you've tasted the pleasure of obedience. Now it is time to put it all together, to integrate, to live submission daily. Integration means that you no longer keep submission hidden in one corner of your life. It means you stop treating it as something separate or secret. Instead, you weave it into your daily choices, your thoughts, your actions, your identity. Because when submission becomes daily practice, it becomes who you are, not a fantasy, not an escape, but a way of living. Psychologically, repetition is what changes you. A single act of service feels good. A single moment of obedience feels powerful. But daily rituals, consistent obedience, repeated choices, that is what reshapes the mind. Your brain learns through habit. Every time you act submissively, with intention, you deepen the neural pathways that connect obedience with pride, pleasure, and relief. Soon it becomes natural, effortless, automatic. This is why daily integration matters, because it makes submission your reality. So, how do you live submission daily? It doesn't require grand gestures. It requires deliberate, repeated acts. Examples. Begin each morning with one ritual service: kneeling, writing, or reflecting. Practice pausing before you speak. Ask yourself, how would a good submissive respond here? And each day with gratitude for the chance to serve, even in small ways. These may seem simple, but simplicity is powerful, because each act reminds you, I am submissive, I live in obedience, I choose this. Identity is not just what you think, it is what you do. When you consistently act as a submissive, you become one. When you consistently practice obedience, you embody it. And when you live submission daily, you can no longer be pulled back into the old roles, the old shame, the old exhaustion of pretending to be someone else. You are changed by action. You are claimed by choice. You are integrated. Here is your integration practice. This week, choose 3 daily acts of submission and commit to them. 1 in the morning, 1 during the day, 1 before bed. They can be small, but they must be deliberate. For example, morning, write, I serve 3 times in a notebook. During the day, pause and breathe before responding to a question. Evening, kneel for 3 breaths before sleep. Do these daily, consistently, and each time say to yourself, this is who I am. This is how I live. So now you see the path. Submission is self-care. Shame is broken. Discipline is devotion. Obedience is pleasure. And integration is life. You are no longer only dreaming. You are living. You are training. You are becoming. Carry this into every day. Let it shape you, ground you, guide you. Because this is not just a fantasy anymore. It is your truth, and your training is only just beginning.